Welcome to the podcast about venture capital, where investors and founders alike can learn how VCs make decisions and reach conviction. Your host is Nick Moran, and this is The Full Ratchet.
Welcome back to TFR for another edition of Investor Stories. On this segment, the experts talk about a startup that failed and the causes of that failure. Here's the segment called Mortems.
On today's special segment, we have Jonathan Hung of UVP. Jonathan, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
You know, for me, it wasn't necessarily a portfolio company. I could give like a couple of stories because you see this all the time. Like I actually became a founder of a company once, and I don't want to name names because it's still going, might be some legal issues down the road, but it failed because the person, the CEO who ran it, thought he was more important than the idea. And he didn't figure out what he needed to do to figure out his customer. He thought he knew based on his past experience. And that's great. You know, like he did something amazing. He was, was a senior vice president for a very large, brokerage company. But the problem is that, you have to understand your consumer. You have to understand your customer, and you have to find the right people to get and build the right team with you. I mean, if you get caught up on worrying about how much money or equity you own, that doesn't matter, because you have to make the pie bigger for everyone to get involved and find the right team to surround yourself with. I see that all the time with some portfolio companies where they have a high valuation, but guess what? You're going to come back down because we don't see it yet. It's not there yet. And so I think you have to be a little humble at times, and know that there is some luck involved. There is some timing that needs to come through for your idea and business idea to take off. I mean, sometimes it's just one customer can change everything. And you have to make the right changes for that customer. So for portfolio companies, I think if you spend too much time on product and not addressing what your customers' wants and needs are, that's also, you're doomed to fail. You're doomed to fail because not everyone's Steve Jobs saying I know what my customer wants. And he was right. He was absolutely right what the iPhone was. But I'm sure he didn't think oh wow, look at all these apps. You have to have the Tim Cook. You have to have, Johnny Ive there to help you along the way and build out your product. No question.
On today's special segment, we have Brian Requarth of Latitude. Brian, can you tell us a story about a portfolio company that failed and why it failed?
Let me think of a portfolio company that failed. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the first angel investments that I made, I invested in a company called Segundo Hogar. And it was very early days of Airbnb. And I just, I thought that the founder was really good. Second time founder, sold his first company to eBay, but the network effects of eBay, of Airbnb are just so insane. That's the first company that's going to crack China, because if you're Chinese and you want to go to New York, you rent an Airbnb and so the fact that they're going to have the demand globally. So that was just an example of not understanding the network effects of a company and thinking that there could be some local network effects. And so that was my first angel investment. It was a $50,000 investment. It evaporated in 9 months. And that was my welcome to investing, right?
It's a tough way to learn there.
Yeah. But I'd say that was an example of not understanding the power of network effects. And then, yeah, I'd say that was the one that didn't work. There's been many others that didn't work, but I always tell the founders to call me when they're going to start their next company.
On today's special segment, we have Winter Mead of Operator. Winter, can you tell us a story about a fund that failed and why it failed?
The fund I'm thinking about, it really was two things. One, it was the team. The team just wasn't. They weren't good actors in the ecosystem, and so again, I think that's when you're trying to solve for personality up front. Is this person long-term oriented and a good actor? And I think you have to tease that out, really up front, via off-sheet references. And I think this was an early career mistake. It was, going with too many on-sheet references and not having the right relationships in place to really like ask the tough questions. So this is probably advice for an LP, right? Like if you're early in your career as an LP, like make sure you like understand what your relationship is with the people that you're doing diligence with, and understand like what their motivations are. And I think really if you have the opportunity to spend time doing an off-sheet reference with someone that you're closer with, or an on-sheet reference with someone that, you know, is just in a more important position, I would go with like the off-sheet reference if you trust that person, even if they don't have as big of a brand. So relying on like, you know, big brand VCs to do diligence and they don't know you and you don't have a great relationship with them, like I don't think you get the best information on the team and kind of their own character. So I think, yeah, that was a team that, you know, a fund that basically blew up, and the team, you know, broke apart because I had spent too much time talking to VCs that didn't really know me, and they didn't really know the character of those individuals, versus like I could have probably spent time finding people where I had a bigger relationship with that knew those folks and could have told me like the inside story of like what was actually going on there.
That will conclude this installment of Investor Stories. If you're enjoying the program and would like to see it continue, take a moment and leave a 5-star review in iTunes. Okay, that will wrap things up for today. Until next time, over-prepare, choose carefully, and invest confidently. Thanks for joining me.